2019. I'd like to call the meeting to order at this time. We'll go through the regular agenda. We do have a quorum today. So the first thing that we have is to approve the minutes for December 10th, 2019. I move to approve the agenda. Move to approve the agenda. We have a motion and a second. Who just seconded it? All right, very good. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. The next thing we have to do is to approve the minutes from October 8th, 2019. Everyone's had a chance to review the minutes. Move to approve those minutes. Do I have a second? I'll second it. We have a second from Tom Jones. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is our director's report. Chad.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. Quickly, I think there are three quick items. The first one is APBP webinar series. As you all know, this monthly series and educational. It's on December 18th here in the same location at 2 p.m. And also on the second item, it's not on the display, but at your, in your locations, there is this handout which has transportation funding as a title. I think it's below the, below the tablet, I think. So I just want to make a quick comment on this. Kristen prepared this transportation funding summary. As you can see, this is informational, and then at your leisure, you can see summary of this statistics. One quick thing I would like to note to you all is, how there is an annual average displayed. For example, from 2013 to 2017, the annual average funding, the local, state, and federal. Local had 77 million, and state had 67 million, and federal had 26 million. On the forecasts, this is again annual average from 2020 to 2040 forecast. So 130 million local, and then state 70 million, and federal 30 million. This is each year, every year, and this also reflects, WAMPO's strength and leadership and various agencies coming together in making, various decisions on transportation investments each year as well. That's informational. And third item we have is Ozone presentation, Ozone requirements, and Chris is here to present on that. Thank you.
Thank you. I will be quite brief here. Some of you may recall several years ago, the Wichita region was in danger of going into non-attainment for ozone, for exceeding the federal pollution limit for ozone pollution. That limit is 70 parts per billion. If you look at the numbers on the slide next to me, you can see they are lower than 70, which is good news. We have seen a decline in these the past couple of years, and we continue to have good news this year. This year we are in the low 60s, and the 3-year average, which is what the EPA would actually look at for assessing whether or not we're in attainment, is right at 63 parts per billion for each of the 3 different monitors in our region. You can see the long-term trend here, looking back towards the beginning of the decade. We were up considerably higher, or above 70, which is the current limit. But we have dropped considerably, seem to be maybe leveling out, but there's really no sign of an uptick thus far. So we are in pretty good shape right now, being well below the current limit. And I feel safe saying that the only way we would get into trouble is either a substantial increase in the ozone pollution in our region, or if the federal government were to come in and make the standard stricter, which is a possibility. They did do that 5 years ago. Any questions?
I don't see any questions. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is consent agenda, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 items on the consent agenda. Move to approve consent agenda. Do we have a second? Kelly Arnold. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Also, I should have recognized Kelly Arnold has returned again. Thank you very much for continuing to serve Sedgwick County. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Does anyone in the audience wish to speak on the public comment today? Seeing no one. Next item, new business. The 2020 WAMPO Unified Planning and Work, who is presenting that? Oh, Chad is. Very good.
Thanks again. As you all know, planning work program is a primarily budget for the forecast 2020. And not only this indicates the budget, it also indicates staff's commitments towards next year's accomplishments as well. Primarily assisting the leadership TPB as well as the most talented TAC committee as well. Both TPB, TSC, and many activities in general about transportation planning, culminating to Metropolitan Transportation Plan development that's critical for us, for staff, that's key for the next year's accomplishments. That's due in June 2020. So we have those tasks lined up, and this documents those tasks. We also wanted to hire a data analyst position to start collecting the data collection for transportation infrastructure as well as for transportation performance measures for the region as well. So those were the two main things. One of the things that included in the EPWP is how staff can reach out to member communities, work with member communities in one of the examples is many areas, but one example is how do we improve the safety of the transportation infrastructure? Statistics show, we all as a team, there's room to come together and address improvement of safety in the transportation system. There are many investments are made, but transportation performance management requires us to be monitoring the safety measures as well. So that's one area. And second area is the land use and transportation integration. How effectively can WAMPO staff and member jurisdictions can work in the next year, to make this integration of land use and transportation. And then we'd like to work with you how the land use changes are occurring in the next year. So many things are documented in this, and the budget is also, documented. This budget is in conjunction with close cooperation with KDOT and FHWA. These are still estimates at the moment for the next year. So as these budget become more determined, and perhaps there would be one revision in the next year sometime later. Thank you. Any questions, we'll be happy to clarify.
Okay, I don't see any questions at all. Next item, Chad is still on, I believe. An overview of our schedule update. I'm sorry. We have a motion to approve. We have a second. Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor say aye. Aye. Both same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Next item then is still Chad with an overview and schedule of our MTP.
Thank you, Chairman. This MTP, Metropolitan Transportation Planning document. Staff is diligently working since past couple of years, and now as it's approaching closer and closer to our goal of having a draft MTP completed by February end or March first week, that time frame. And then we have a lot of committees working on project prioritization, mainly one for regional prioritization and one for WAMPO sub-allocated funding as well. So today we want to keep you posted where we are on the MTP timeline as well as the project selection priorities as well. So Chris is here to present on the status. Thank you.
Sure, thanks, Chad. So on the WAMPO funding menu, this is the projects that you all submitted last summer for consideration to get funding by WAMPO, get federal funding through WAMPO. The selection committee heard last month from all of the project sponsors. Everyone had the opportunity to come in and present, and I think that went very well. The selection committee learned quite a bit, and we got lots of additional information from our project sponsors. They have also looked at the ratings on the project selection criteria and confirmed those. The last step is to come up with the actual list of projects, and they are meeting next week to come up with a list that will come to the policy body as a recommendation in the new year. So we should have that list for you probably at your February meeting if everything goes according to plan. On the major regional priorities, these in contrast to are not the projects that are receiving WAMPO funding, but are the big high priority projects in our region. You may recall that this board approved a list of those priorities back in August, but you did want to revisit that. We will be hearing today on 3 of those projects from various parties that have an interest in those particular projects. And you also mentioned that you wanted to hear from the Technical Advisory Committee on those. The TAC has appointed a small committee to take a deep look at these and report back to the full TAC. Tom Jones is leading that effort. And they will be having their first meeting also next week. So it will be a busy week for projects and priorities in the WAMPO region next week. Any questions?
I don't see any questions. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
I think you're still on, aren't you? No.
I do. That's both mine.
Okay. Very good. Next, we're going to have 3 presentations as discussed by Chris, and we have 3 directors of Public Works with us today, so we appreciate each of them being here today. First one, Les Mungus from Andover. Welcome.
Let's do this one first.
Mr. Chair, did that last item need to be a receive and file motion, a new business or anything? Or we're just moving on?
We can do as a receive and file.
I don't know, I just saw it under new business. I didn't know if it needed action or not.
Very good. On item Bravo, we have a motion by Pete Meitzner to receive and file. Do we have a second? We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor state aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Now we're ready for East Kellogg.
Great. Thanks for the opportunity. I see a lot of faces out here that have been involved in discussions about major regional priorities, both at the KDOT Forward Transportation Plan meetings and at the Wichita Chamber Transportation Coalition. The project I'm here to talk to you about is East Highway 54 that Freeway has recently opened to K96 and extend out beyond Andover. One of the things that probably most folks don't know is that there are numerous studies out there on this corridor that have been going on over the last 10 plus years. Because we all realize that as these freeway improvements extend further east, we just kick the can down the road. That bottleneck that occurred at Rock Road 20 years ago has now been kicked down the road to 143rd Street. We think this is probably the most significant east-west corridor in south central Kansas. And if you look at the numbers, it's interesting that the volumes on Highway 54 are actually higher than Interstate 70, all the way from Topeka west. They're nearly double those volumes. There are a lot of trucks, 2,000 trucks a day if you use a 5% value. The 2040 estimate is 85,000 vehicles per day, so just about double what it is today. Some statistics on workers. There are something like 8,000 workers who commute back and forth. 5,000 of those from Butler County into Wichita for work, and another 3,000 who come from Wichita back out to Butler County for work, as well as about 4,000 students a day, both at Butler Community College and the Andover USD 385. These studies have been conducted by Wichita, KDOT, KTA. Back in 2011, a study was done to provide a right-of-way concept that can be used for planning on the Sedgwick County side of the project. 2012, it was followed by another study that was done by Andover, KDOT, and WAMPO to establish a right-of-way footprint, and in this case, actually some land planning to try to coordinate land planning and highway improvements. Of course, you all know about the construction that's been going on for the last 3 years to clear up that bottleneck at Webb Road. Like I said, we've just kicked the can down the road. In 2018, 2019, Andover has done some improvements at Yorktown Street in preparation for a major development there, a mixed-use project with residential and commercial. And then as the US 54 improvements were wrapping up, Wichita has done some analysis of the intersection at 143rd Street. There are some interesting consequences of that freeway opening up to 143rd Street. If you've ever traveled out there today, well, let's say a month ago, you would know that the intersection at 143rd Street had failed. Traffic backs up in the afternoon beyond K96 such that traffic off of K96 can't get on to eastbound Highway 54. With the opening of the freeway and the future improvements, that condition gets worse. It will get to the point where there will be a over 220-second delay at 143rd Street because of the freeway and that unrestricted condition. Just a few slides here on potential concepts. One thing that I really want to drive home is that this is nearly $500 million worth of improvements if the freeway is built all the way from K96 to east of Andover. And we all know that funding a $500 million project is something we can't take on in one step. So this planning study would help us to look at if there's a possibility this work could be broken up into phases. You know, we've done that all the way across town. I was telling David Spear that I worked on Highway 54 at West Street back in 1985, building the first freeway bridge. That can has been kicked down the road now for the last 30 years, 30 plus years. So it's important for us to study the corridor and see if there's any way we can divide it up into phases that are logical and don't just continue to kick the problem down the road further to the east. Again, the City of Andover did a study. Here are some of the concepts from that study, what US 54 would look like. We project that 54 would go under Andover Road, and it might, the profile might come out of the ground as it travels east at specific locations until it hits Prairie Creek Road on the east side of Andover, where it again would have to be elevated because of floodplain. Part of the MTP was to analyze the outcomes of the project. Excuse me. Safety and health. We all know that this project, a freeway, would reduce accidents. It would improve air quality because those cars aren't stopped every mile at a traffic light idling. And it would allow us to build in some bike ped crossings. That's a priority in Andover has been the bike ped. Every arterial street project we do, we build a 10-foot bike ped sidewalk and a 5-foot pedestrian sidewalk on the opposite side. Today, all of those projects come up to Kellogg, and I call it Frogger. If a person is brave enough, they can walk or ride a bicycle across Highway 54, but I certainly wouldn't advise it. I doubt that any of you would. Another outcome has been integrated multimodal transportation network. Again, bike ped crossings are very important. Enhanced freight movement. 2,000 loads of freight a day come through that intersection at US 54 and Andover Road. Enhancing that commuter route for a lot of reasons. Again, 8,000 workers a day. 9,000 students a day are commuting back and forth. The economy and mobility, again, bike ped always comes up in these analysis. Freight corridor, enhanced access to properties adjacent to the highway. Today, there are some direct access driveways that would certainly be eliminated and frontage roads built with a freeway project. Reduced commute times, reduced idle times. Just think about that. There's something like 40,000 cars a day at 143rd Street today. When that freeway is completed, if each one of those cars has to wait 2 minutes in the peak, that's a lot of delays and wasted time and gas. Again, improved commute times and enhancements to a lot of things in Butler County. You know, we rely a lot on Sedgwick County, not only for employment, but healthcare. We see a lot of ambulances that run down Highway 54 from as far as southeast Kansas to access medical facilities in Wichita. And the last outcome, quality of place and talent. You know, we're all striving to get more employees, more jobs, better places to work, higher property values. We think this project does that by making that commute easier for folks. In Andover, we're very proud of our school system, so we have a lot of families who the breadwinner in the house commutes off to Wichita for work. We think that quality of life is very important, and a good commute to work, a safe commute to work, opportunities for bike ped are important. So with that, I'd love to entertain any questions. I know Brett Letkowski's here from the Wichita Chamber Transportation Coalition. There's been a lot of good work has gone into all of these projects. You got a couple more presenters that follow here that all of these projects have been well vetted and a lot of support shown for.
Question, Les, how many cars today at 143rd and Kellogg? Is it 40,000 a day, did you say?
It's right about 40,000. It's about 45,000 on the other side of K96. So imagine that. I looked at the KDOT traffic map. On Interstate 70 today, there are 22,000 cars a day. So double that on East Kellogg in Wichita.
Brett, do you recall, before we started the Webb Road project, what was that cars per day? Wasn't that 60,000, if I remember, at that intersection? Don't recall? I don't either. Okay.
Some of the statistics that Brett provided were that the delays after the current freeway project is complete will be essentially the same as those were at Webb Road before that project was started. 222 seconds. That's almost 4-minute delay.
That was before Costco.
Yes. Yes. Thanks for the opportunity.
A couple things real quick before you go. Can you provide the electronic version of these slides to Chad so he can get it out to everybody? Because I truly can't read what's on
Yes.
your slides.
Bethany has that
Okay.
PowerPoint.
So it'd be very nice to have that. All three of these projects are regionally significant. I think that they'll be very high with WAMPO. I think Brett group with the Transportation Coalition, they'll be very high. So they are all three very significant for this region. So we appreciate your briefing on it today.
And I think we have the attention of KDOT up in Topeka also. Secretary seems very supportive.
Great, thank you. Next up, we have David Spears from Sedgwick County. He's going to be talking to us about the Northwest Bypass. Thank you.
Just going a little backwards.
Good afternoon. David Spears, Director of Public Works for Sedgwick County. I'm going to give you a little status report on the Northwest Bypass and maybe tell you a couple of things that you might not know about. So there's the route of the bypass, or some people call it the Northwest Expressway. You can see it ties into 96 up at the north end, just north and east of Mace. Comes around, down, ties back into Kellogg at the south end between 167th and 183rd. And talk a little bit later on, but you can see it's been put into 3 different projects now instead of one, because like Les was talking about, it costs so much money, you can't afford to do all in one. And the whole thing is like $520 million. So you can see the green part and then the red part and then the blue part. And the green part starts up at the north end there at K96, or junctions with that. Comes down to somewhere between 13th and 21st, down past the hospital that's out there now. So on history, 1997, KDOT began the formal study on this project. From 2001 to 2005, we had initial public involvement with informational meetings, several of them across the county. In 2006, we selected the preferred alternative and presented it to the public. And so you need to know that all of the environmental clearances have been approved, and the project has been designed through the field check stage. So in 2006, acquisition begins for the right-of-way, and of course KDOT is in charge of that, but we have local partners helping. And in 2007, Sedgwick County established Corridor Preservation Plan Overlay District, which is a protective overlay. As far as I know, no other place in the state has done that. We put a protective overlay over the entire route, and no one can build in there. So I'll talk a little bit about that as we go on. Project highlights and cost. This is pretty significant. It includes a major drainage detention facility on Dry Creek to protect a subdivision or subdivisions in northwest Wichita. When we had the Halloween flood of 1998, it flooded Breezy Point. After that was over, the county and city of Wichita entered into an agreement with Black and Veatch, and they came up with several different things across the county to do to help prevent some flooding. And one of them was this. Of course, this is not a small deal. It's between $20 and $25 million for this lake, big pond, to hold water so that Breezy Point won't flood. So that's kind of unique. The project is being designed to use all that dirt on the expressway. Another thing you may not know, we're looking at options for a toll road. A lot of talk about that across the nation now, and we're soon right here at the December, January, going to get started on that. It's a toll study to see if it would qualify for a toll, both in pieces and for the whole route. So perhaps if it does qualify, maybe we can get a new partner, Turnpike Authority. So that would be nice. Now, the estimated total right-of-way cost is going to be about $50 million. And the estimated construction cost is $520 million. So, a little status report on right-of-way. Through now, $23.2 million has been spent on right-of-way. You can see the breakdown of 2006 to 2010 was 14.4, and 2011 to 15, 5.5, and 16 to 20, 3.3, and that adds up to the 23.2. We've met with KDOT. We're working on a new 5-year agreement with them. Probably get that signed next June or July. And that one, it'll be $500,000 local, $500,000 KDOT, so $1 million a year. Still probably have about $30 million worth to buy, so that'd be 30 more years unless something improves. Of course, we could concentrate the money on, I'm thinking the north end, that first part, and maybe get that right away first. and go ahead and get that started. But you can see the total right-of-way required for the whole job is 1,334 acres. That's a lot of land. Total right-of-way acquired to date, 470 acres. So another innovation that we did was this protective overlay I talked about a little while ago, and we established that in county zoning code in 2007. So what happens is if development activity is detected within that corridor, we notify KDOT. Also, if somebody wants to just build a house in there, that goes to MABCD. They contact us, we contact KDOT. KDOT talks to those folks and determines if it makes sense to go ahead and buy that right away. Most of the time it does. It's going to get the right of way cheaper before somebody builds in it, and that's the whole point. Overall, this will save millions and millions of dollars in the long run. This process also serves as notice to future project of the future project for the current owners and potential buyers. So it's just communication. Okay, the WAMPO MTP outcomes, it hits 4 out of 5, safety and health, integrated multimodal transportation network, economy and mobility, quality of place, and talent attraction / retention. On safety and health, limited access facilities reduce traffic conflicts and increase safety. Congestion will also be reduced on like the arterials in Wichita, like Central, 13th, 21st. More people will be using the bypass, less people will be using the arterials. The bypass route would reduce traffic on I-135 and US 400, leading to lower congestion and increased safety on those routes. It incorporates a dry creek detention storage feature to mitigate flooding. I think that outlines all of that. Then expanding the economy through mobility, construction of the Northeast Expressway spurred significant growth in Northeast Wichita, which has expanded into adjacent cities. We believe this will mirror the Northeast Expressway. It's reasonable to think that similar expansion will happen when the Northwest Bypass is constructed. I'm going to have something pretty special at the end of this PowerPoint, if it works, to show you what's happened over on the Northeast Expressway. Major investments have already occurred in the St. Teresa Hospital, the YMCA, and Mays and Goddard developments. Integrated multimodal transportation network. Integrated networks require robust interstate-level backbone infrastructure to carry freight and passenger vehicles safely through and around the region. The Northwest Bypass would increase efficiency of traffic moving from Northeast Kansas to Southwest Kansas and beyond, and vice versa. Expanding the economy through quality of place to attract and retain talent, the WAMPO region enjoys low congestion and travel delays. Planning for this interstate level route provides a tool to ensure that commute times and travel delays remain at a minimum. Reliable commute times are an important asset for workforce attraction and retention. And I think I've seen somewhere, and somebody here probably knows more about that than me, that the average commute time in this area is less than 20 minutes to get from home to work. I want to show you the city limits. You see there up on the top, Mays, Wichita down the center, and the I don't know what color, it's a gray color, and then Goddard down below. You can see Wichita is moving out to the west, getting closer and closer to where the alignment is going to be. It already goes through Mays. One of the things about the protective overlay is that when a city annexes that land where the protective overlay is, they do not have to follow that guideline anymore. They can allow development in there. What we try to do is work with them so that they don't put any in there. But the pressure will increase over time from developers to go ahead and develop this property, and that would not be a good thing. This is a future growth pattern, and it shows Wichita out past the alignment in 2035. You can see this will be a huge increase in economic development and tax base. Okay, now we'll see if this works. Whoops. Oh. Can you start it moving? Oh, you gotta get right on that. Press it.
Yeah, I don't know why.
It's going, it's going.
It's not up there though, for them.
Oh. Uh-oh.
I know.
Sometimes I get these wild ideas and they don't work on PowerPoints. What I'm trying to do is show a time-lapse photography from before the Northeast Expressway was put in to now and show you the development that occurred along there in all these years. It worked back at the office.
It worked here too.
That's all I have to say.
I don't know. It comes up on here. Chris, do you have any idea?
Is it in slideshow? And make sure it's in slideshow.
I don't know.
The highlight of the show.
Yeah, it comes up on here, but it doesn't come up. It worked earlier.
I may have done something wrong. I might have clicked on it twice or something.
No, it's probably something with the
That's
external
what I was gonna
display.
say. Well, I wondered if it was the view that it is on the PowerPoint, because it looks like only the PowerPoint will show.
Yeah. Here, I'm going to get it to work this way.
You are magic.
So where do you want to start from here?
80.
The first year. It should go straight to it.
Okay. Let's see.
84, right there. Starting with 1984, you can see the years below it, going to, and it'll cycle again. It'll actually show you when the whole, that's the Northeast, when it was built. There's the years down at the bottom. If you make that picture, well, I don't want to make you mess with it now, but if you make that picture so you can see more around, you'll see more development, not just along the highway, but even outside of it more, a little more. Well, that's why we put history repeats itself. We think the same thing will happen out west. We don't know why it wouldn't. So all these projects are deserving. We just got more projects than we do money. I mean, at East Kellogg's deserving, West Kellogg's deserving, this is deserving. This one will give you more tax base though. No, just kidding. Sorry. That's all right. The others are far ahead of this one. So anyway, that's it. Let's leave that alone, I guess. Oh, any questions?
Go ahead.
Actually, more of a comment on when you were talking about the WAMPO MTP outcomes hits 4 out of 5. I was a little bit surprised why you're not taking some credit for the equity, because if you're going to achieve safety and health benefits and you're taking freight off of the local roads, you're getting them off the arterials, you're helping the health of the community, why not count that as a benefit? Because you're helping the overall community from that perspective. Because you talk about quality of place being improvement and attraction and retention. If that community has less traffic in there and the freight's being diverted, why wouldn't that be a benefit?
It would be. You're the preacher talking to the choir, so I'm okay with that.
Just a suggestion.
That's right. That's exactly right.
At least maybe an indirect benefit.
Right. Just didn't want to take everything too far, but that is correct. Thank you.
All right, David, Obviously, I've got a lot of comments about this project because it's almost entirely in my district for one thing, and I'm very, very, very familiar with the project. A couple things, I recently had lunch with the mayor of Goddard. I need to have lunch with the mayor of Mays here in the near future to talk about a few things. The $500,000 that the state has put up, I think that Goddard is willing to add a little bit. They've only been putting in about $2,500 a year out of that. 325 is what we were putting in, and we're going to raise it to $500,000 if the commission agrees. So we probably ought to talk to City of Mays and see if they'd like to increase theirs. I think they're giving like $3,000 a year. So that's something just to forewarn Mays that I'll probably be talking about along with some other projects out by 135th Street. But the other thing is you did mention the overlay, and again, whenever I can have lunch with the mayor of Mays, Goddard said that they are including the overlay anytime they annex property. I'm hoping that Mays is doing the same thing, but I haven't been able to confirm. It looks like they're confirming that they are updating the overlay, because once that it's annexed, we lose that overlay to protect the property. So both anybody that annexes the property needs to update that overlay to make sure that they take care of it. Another thing, you mentioned Breezy Point a couple times, but it's not just Breezy Point, Rainbow Lakes, the Dell. There are other homeowner areas that are impacted by that, putting that retention pond in out in western Sedgwick County. So make sure that we include that there's a lot more than just Breezy Point that can be protected. So those are a couple of important points. We are working with the state right now, and I think we'll probably increase the amount to match the $500,000 from Sedgwick County. And we just want to partner with Mays and Goddard to do that. So, anything else?
No.
Very good. Well, thank you, David. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I don't see Gary. You must be Gary today. Very good. City of Wichita will be talking to us about Kellogg going west, which also goes into my district, so I'm really happy to hear about this.
Probably want it back on that. Spears broke the computer, didn't
That got rid of my screen though.
Yeah, but now if you hit that, we'll get the
Okay.
presenter notes and stuff.
All right. Sweet.
Sean Mace, I'm the Chief Design Engineer for the City of Wichita, and I'm filling in for Gary today. Project I'm going to talk about is West Kellogg from 119th through 151st. As you can see from this map, you can see the sections of Kellogg that have been completed. There's roughly 13 miles there in blue that goes from Trigg to 111th. Trigg is just west of the turnpike out east. If you don't know, it's a small street, so you can almost say Webb Road. The section in yellow here is the 2.5 miles that's currently under construction out east. And the red on the left-hand side of the map is the section of West Kellogg that we're going to talk about today, which is roughly about 2 miles. Shows an aerial map of what's been built. You can see the frontage road right, the main line improvements stop at about 111th. So the 6-lane freeway back to the east. It's a 4-lane freeway with at-grade crossings at the arterial streets or the 1 mile section line roads. We have built a number of frontage roads included in this project. So you can see the frontage road on the south side has been built, and a section on the north side there between 135th and 151st was built. We recently took the signal out at 111th. Mays goes over, mainline Kellogg goes over at Mays Road. It comes over a crest. There was a signal to 111th. The proximity, we saw a number of accidents there. So we looked at different strategies or different options of what we could do. One of them was to take the signal out and put a slip ramp on in that area. So we did a project. We worked with KDOT to actually get this approved. So the turn lane now, the left turn lane for westbound traffic actually becomes to where you can make a U-turn at the intersection of 119th. And there was some pavement added there so bigger vehicles could do that. This just shows what the proposed configuration looks like. The orange is mainline pavement. So you can see at 119th, it goes over. Mainline goes over, so it goes up and over. At 135th, it goes underneath. So ideally, you would build the two at the same time. It doesn't have to be done that way, but what that does allow you to do is you take dirt from digging the hole at 135th and you take it to 119th and make the mound where you have retaining walls taking up to the improvements. Again, everything you see here in green has already been built, so you can see a number of the frontage roads are already there. The design for this project is all but complete. We will look at completing it this year, in 2020. Right-of-way has been acquired. All of the utilities have been relocated except between 135th and 119th. I'll talk a little bit about this. This is a zoomed in picture of 119th. So again, you can see the orange going over the top. It's fairly standard. This will look very similar to what you see at Maze. You'll have the Texas U-turn. We have to build the frontage roads straight through there on the south side. You can see the existing is what's there now. Because it's not grade crossing, we're trying to pull that away so you can actually make that movement when there's a considerable amount of traffic in that area. You can see looking at this, there's a considerable offset starting here. There were a number of reasons that was done. Part of it was the cemetery you see here on the screen. So that alignment is actually shifting south. That's a big part of the reason the frontage road on the north side between, well, more or less 111th to 135th hasn't been built at this point. This bridge you can see over here, that's the frontage road, and that is actually the mainline bridge for westbound Kellogg right now. 135th, like I said, goes underneath. So this will be very similar to what you see at Webb Road out east. Again, you have to build the frontage road straight through. The bulb out will go away. You have to do some reconfiguration on the arterial streets, and we still have to build the frontage road there on the north side of Kellogg, east of 135th. Talk a little bit about what it's going to look like. This is just to give you an idea of what the aesthetics are going to look like at 135th. You have some terraced retaining walls with landscaping. You also have some artistic designs on the bridge to give it a little better look than just a standalone bridge. That's zoomed in. You can kind of see the artistic rendering there. 119th looks very similar to Maze as far as the abutment walls, the piers and stuff will have a form liner to go along with them, and it'll have a raised planter on the outside of the retaining wall. Like I said, this project is getting very close to being complete as far as design goes. The right-of-way has been acquired, and most of the utilities have been relocated. Another thing with this is Wichita Transit is currently looking at park and ride facilities both out east and out west. The one out west they're looking at a potential location is the 135th and Kellogg. So you could drive your vehicle there, you could park, get on a bus, and come downtown, go wherever it is you want to go. With this project, that would connect you Freeway from that facility. I don't want to talk too much about the different criteria that it hits because it's more or less the same as the other projects as far as development, as far as health and safety. 135th has a 10-foot wide path all the way from Kellogg. When we're done, we'll have it all the way up 21st. Right now, there's a gap between Central and 13th. 119th has a sidewalk and path on the south side. So it hits all those criteria just like the other projects. The estimated cost of this project, because we've already completed a considerable amount of it, it's only about $85 million. And with that, I'll open up to any questions you have.
We have any questions? A couple of comments on this one also. It goes into my district, so I'm very familiar with this project also. But a couple points. The last time that anything was done on Kellogg going west, Bob Martz, who some of you are too young to even remember Bob Martz, was the city councilman for the city of Wichita. He did the ribbon cutting of the project we see right now that went out to about 111th Street. That was a long time ago. And right now, Goddard's growing up, everything west is growing. It's time that we start concentrating a little bit more on going west. Another problem we have is he mentioned they took out the stoplight at 111th, which everybody applauds. I think that was a great idea to take that stoplight out. Everyone except for Doonan, who it hampers growth of and what's happening with that large truck firm there, because as they leave, the only direction that they can go from Doonan is to go west. And so then if they really want to go east, they have to make a U-turn at 119th Street. Doonan drives very large trucks, and trying to make a U-turn at 119th Street with a very large truck, they actually have to back up in the middle of Kellogg and do a three-point turn in order to get their big trucks to go back east. That's not a safe situation by any means whatsoever. We've actually talked to the Secretary of Transportation about that problem, and it is a serious concern. So even though we love the fact that that stoplight's gone, it has hampered one of our organizations, one of our businesses that's critical along there. So this is another project that is really critical to the region. Any other comments? We appreciate you coming in and briefing it today. Thank you. Hey, we appreciate the updates. I think we all pretty well agree that those three are regionally significant projects for this area, and hope that we can get support to be able to move forward on those. If we have nothing else, let's move on to the next item, and that's committee updates. The executive committee met last week. Unfortunately, I was out of town when it met. Dan is sick today. That's why I'm trying to figure out how to be a chair. And so what I've asked is Bruce Armstrong to give us the update for the executive committee.
We met and discussed the financials that you had looked at today. We also looked at some comparisons of two other MPOs in salaries and personnel. And we also looked at upcoming elections that are going to be here coming in this next year of your executive committee and your officers. So those are the three things we looked at.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, next is our TAC, Tom Jones.
We have set up a team that's looking at the 16 major projects in the area. We've all been provided overviews of what's going on with those projects and the proposals and stuff. We'll be meeting again next Monday to start looking at technical criteria for those projects, and hope to bring something back probably going to be in February, maybe January, but probably February before we get the data pulled together. And then this team can make a selection based on those facts along with other things that need to happen in the area.
Very good. Any questions for Tom? Seeing none, Tom Hine is already up, ready to speak, so we'll turn it over to him. Thank you.
Tom Hine with Kansas Department of Transportation with a local report. We really, KDOT has just two projects going right now. They do have significant impact to the highways. Today, they are on southbound 135 with some ramps closed, and that will continue until winter truly hits us. And I think the project at that point will be suspended for the winter, and they'll pick it back up in the spring. Right now, the 8th and 9th Street on-ramp to southbound 135 is closed, as well as the Central Avenue off-ramp. And they are doing concrete patching right now on the roadway. There's a lot of patching to be done there, and eventually they will reseal that, and I think that will take better temperatures, and so that will probably happen in the spring. The second project, of course, is the Green Project up on I-235 on the north end of town. That one is in phase 2. We look for a ramp to reopen. That would be the northbound I-235 eastbound K-96 ramp to Broadway should reopen soon. And then we will eventually get into phase 3 next year with more bridge building and more mainline construction of that project. It has another 2 years of construction going on. So I would take any questions if you have any.
Very good. Didn't we just get $18 million or something like that from you all to start buying right away for the next phase?
The next phase at the North Junction, is that what you're talking about? Well, the next phase of the North Junction is part of a cost share program. So it's been selected as a cost share program for the region. It's about $23 million project right now. Working on that. We just had a meeting on that again yesterday. We're doing everything we can to get that North Junction issue, the loop ramp there fixed and a flyover put in. So most recently, our meeting, the big issue up there is environmental permitting crossing that first canal north of 37th Street. So we're working on a way to do a project to address all those issues, but the cost share program is kicking in a big share. The city of Wichita is kicking in a big share to get that project moving forward.
Great, thank you.
And
Any other questions?
Well, I didn't mean to leave it out, but the East Kellogg Freeway, just since our last WAMPO meeting, 2 lanes of each direction of the new freeway have opened. Our partners, City of Wichita, administer the Webb Road area, and the Kansas Turnpike Authority is administering the next project at Greenwich, and we're happy to see that freeway open, and we kicked it down to Les's area. So, thank you.
Very good. Well, thank you. Even though I live out west, I drove through that new area that you just opened the other day, and I hit the bottleneck at Andover, so I know what they're talking about. Thank you. Okay, KDOT, anything?
The only thing I'll mention is the local consult. Appreciate everybody who went there. We talked. Okay, well, I appreciate, I wanted to mention the local consult we had here in Wichita. I appreciate everybody who came to that. There was talk about what's KDOT's priority, where are these projects going to fit, and I think anybody who attended that heard that the selection of projects is going to be through the old priority formula used in the past with local input. So any questions on the local consult, I try to help out those.
Very good. Any questions? Okay. Federal,
Yeah. Yes, thank you. It's great to be back and provide an update. I try to get down here at least quarterly. First off, a big compliment to the staff at WAMPO for the Unified Planning Work Program. I will tell you that, in the review of the document that we saw, and I know that had the approval action today, just a kudos. Well done, good process. I think we've seen some great improvements in that document, and so just wanted to kind of pass that along. Federal program, we are under a continuing resolution. As folks are aware, the FAST Act expires September of next year. Our federal funding began for federal fiscal year 20, October 1st, so we're under a continuing resolution until December 20th. So we will see what happens at that point. At this point, Kansas has gotten about 12% of the overall 416 million that should be coming, so about a little over 50 million. In terms of what's coming to WAMPO, that's the portion that's the PL program. So we will keep you all updated as that moves along. November 12th, for those that had competed for bill grants, there were $900 million announced by Secretary Chow. 16 million came to Kansas. One project was out in Hayes, the Northwest business development corridor, and then we had in Olathe, I-35, 119th Street interchange. That was about $10 million. So money is coming, and we'll be seeing more build grants and infra grant solicitations on the freight side. Wanted to mention manual and uniform traffic control devices. If folks are aware or not aware, we're the keeper of the keys on that. We're looking to have a new notice of proposed rulemaking. We will be soliciting comments to the docket, so there's a whole nother rewrite of that to come. So just wanted to put that out there, that will be an opportunity to comment on signing and standards. We do have an NPRM out as well on National Bridge Inventory. That opened up mid-November, and the comment period for that will close on January 30th. In terms of personnel, for my office, Doug Doherty, who's been our transportation engineer, working very closely with the KDOT district down here, he will be retiring at the end of December. So we will be announcing that vacancy to go out all public as well as federal. So look to have that come out, I would say probably at the beginning of the year. And that's what I have. Any questions or comments for me? I guess I will also pass on a kudos to KDOT for the local consult meeting. I attended the Wichita meeting along with Chad and the WAMPO folks. I thought it was great attendance. So anyway, good to be back. Thanks.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for your update. Does anything else have to come before WAMPO today? I want to wish everyone a very happy Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Well, we wish you the best during the holidays, and we'll see you next year. Well, we're adjourned.